We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone and welcome to Shipwrecked Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast. My name is Kurt North and joining me today is co-host of this brand new podcast on the We Made This Podcast network, Mark Adams. Mark, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right. Hello, Kurt. This is the podcast that was never supposed to happen.
It kind of just crept up on us, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain how and why this podcast has suddenly been born out of a random discussion a few weeks back?
Okay, well, I invited you to be a guest on my temporary podcast, which is called Don't Say the C Word. Don't Say the C Word was designed to keep me sane while I was a little bit bored at home during the COVID-19 situation. And I let the guest choose whatever topic they want, and you chose Red Dwarf. And by the end of it, we were so enthusiastic about Red Dwarf. I said, do you want to do a Red Dwarf podcast? And you said, yeah, all right. And then it kind of snowballed from there, really.
Yeah, so you know, rather than like two friends decide, I tell you what, let's do a podcast together. We've spoken for literally 26 minutes and decided, no, we're gonna go the long haul and do 12 seasons and a special for podcast, which is great. And to be fair to you, Mark, you've been, as I say, you've been the main driving force behind this, as many people might know, or if you don't know, that I've actually got a couple of podcasts on the go. I did a Pick Up the Podcast, which is a podcast about podcasters and podcasting. I'm also the showrunner for a Millennium podcast, which is about the TV show Millennium, which aired between 1996 and 1999. And I've been covering Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery on the Make It So podcast. All of those podcasts are on the We Made This Podcast network, which is what we are on. And as I say, Mark invited me to join him to talk about on one of his podcasts as well, which was Don't Mention the Sea, and then Red Dwarf, this podcast, Shipwrecked Comatose, was born. So, Mark, what other podcasts have you been doing other than Don't Mention the Sea? What other delights have you got for us before we jump into the Red Dwarf reasoning behind, what we're going to do for the Red Dwarf one?
Well, Don't Say the C Word was never really supposed to happen. Like I said, it was just to keep me going while I didn't have very much work during the lockdown. And I was only ever supposed to have one podcast on the We Made This Podcast network. And that's a podcast called Life's Milestones, which is it's a celebrant podcast because my job is I'm a celebrant, and it's a podcast about birth and naming ceremonies, relationships and marriage, and funerals and death. And the idea is that I get a diverse number of guests, and I discuss that topic with them on a fortnightly basis. I do also have a podcast outside of the network as well, which is called Pull or Pass, and that is a weekly comic book review radio show that is converted to a podcast after it's broadcast live on Fab Radio International.
As I say, after the recording that we did, we kind of got a bit excited. Red Dwarf, The Promised Land was on that week, as it happens, which I know that just a bit of background to what we are, our Red Dwarf history, I think, is probably a good thing to start with, Mark, I think. So I've watched Red Dwarf pretty much since the beginning. I'm 40 years old. It was released in 1987. I've watched pretty much every season as it's gone through. Up into The Promised Land, I've watched it every single iteration as it's come through. But you didn't really catch up after season 8, did you? I think it was season 8 that you stopped watching it?
Basically, yeah. After the BBC series stopped, I was aware of the Dave ones, and I think I've probably seen like one or two randomly, but I haven't watched those at all. So I'm really looking forward to the nostalgia of the first 8 seasons, followed by almost encountering something completely new from series, from is it called Back to Reality?
Back to Earth the one that we talked briefly about Back to Earth on the Don't Mention the Sea, didn't we? That was the one which you where we're saying Craig Charles is actually playing himself. When they come back out of from Back to Earth, and it's a DVD and things, so it's very kind of meta and very based on Blade Runner as well. So I remember you saying that you have vague recollections of that one. Is your plan then to along with this as we co-host these episodes together? Is your plan to hold off on the new series until we get to them and actually watch them afresh so we can have a fresh perspective, or are you going to watch them before we get there?
I don't know. Maybe the second one.
Have to make that choice now. Yeah.
Maybe the second one, because I think that'll give it a nice perspective after we've had the original series. Yeah, why not? And also that means I don't have to watch them now. That's
true. You just get to watch some classic Dwarf.
Which, I've been enjoying immensely.
We behind the scenes, Mark, as I say, I've been quite busy in the couple of weeks since we last spoke on the podcast. So you've been the driving force behind it. So how are we going to approach this? What are we going to be doing with regards to? We only have to talk about the first season for now, but how are we approaching the episodes and with the likes of guests and hosting and things like that? So what's our general aim for the first season anyway?
Well, essentially you and me are kind of switching on a weekly basis who's doing the plot run through, the hosting, I suppose. Yeah. So we'll kind of like have one of us as the main host, switching between the two of us as weeks go by. We're going to do them in series blocks. So we'll release Series 1, which will correlate with Series 1 of Red Dwarf. So there'll be 6 episodes, which will run from Series 1's Episode 1 to Series 1's Episode 6. And then we'll probably take a little break, and then we'll get back for Series 2, and that'll carry on until we've done all of them. But we're probably going to throw in some specials as well, because there's some cool stuff. There's I didn't even know about it till I was researching for the show. There was like a Ready Steady Cook, and there's obviously the Smeg-ups, and there's a role-playing game, which I'm really excited about. And there's lots of stuff that we can look at, like the Smegazine as well. There's loads of stuff we can look at.
Yeah, the Smegazine I wasn't aware of. Ready Steady Cook I was aware of. And obviously the Smeg-ups and some of the specials and things will be good to look at. And I'm sure we're going to have a great fun with that. So you don't know this yet, Mark, but only because I decided this literally like 25 minutes ago.
Okay.
So we haven't prepped for this. So this may well change as the season goes on. But I thought that we would nick something that Tony does, the curator on the We Made This Podcast network. The all ever seeing eye of the network. The Illuminati. Character that he on his Xcast and on my Millennium podcast we have the 5 questions of X, or the initiation questions. So I've decided that we're going to have the become an officer exam in relation to obviously Rimmer's officer exams and engineer exams that he generally takes through the course of the season. So I'm going to have you as my guinea pig, and as I say, the proviso is that it's been a long time since you've seen them, and you may not well remember some stuff, but it's a good discussion piece. So, my first question in the officer exam is, and it's not what you think. It's when did you discover Red Dwarf, or what was your first memory of seeing Red Dwarf?
Well, this was very much a thing that I shared with my brother, and I think I'll be talking about that a lot as we go through the series. We just devoured it on VHS. I think we probably didn't watch the first series when it launched. I think it was more early 90s when we got into Red Dwarf. And I don't really remember how I very first found it, but the vivid memories I have is just on repeat, sticking that VHS in again and again and again. And we just loved it. We just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I'm of a similar ilk. I don't think I saw the very first season. I remember seeing them on BBC Two. I do remember vividly seeing them. I don't remember which episode it would have been that I saw, whether it be the first one or not, because I would have been 7 years old when the first episode's gone out, 7 or 8, when those first seasons go out. But I do remember them vividly, and especially when we get to season 3, I think that is a particular one, and I'm pretty sure that early doors, similar to you, I think early doors, I must have seen them in a bit of a higgledy-piggledy order. well, I might have seen one, then I've seen another one, then I might not have seen 3 episodes. But the VHSs were definitely the way that I devoured them, as you stated there. That because of the way that the VHSs were, that you could just literally stick them on 6 episodes at a time and away you go. So I think that worked really well for me, and the VHSs were particularly good, especially the smeg-ups, as we mentioned. So question number 2 is, what would you think of as your favourite episode?
No hesitation, Gunman of the Apocalypse.
And the reason for that?
Just because it's so fucking funny. I don't really think I have anything other than the fact that it was just wonderful. And I think also there's an element of, as a kid, I was fascinated with VR and the idea of, and I love video games, and the idea of being in the video game was cool. And that's the episode I've watched the most, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I would have it similar. Mine would be Back to Reality, which is the 6th and final episode of season 5. I think it's a similar thing with with the VR kind of thing. The fact that they have the squid is the one that's causing them all those issues. That you've got Dwayne Dibley, which is just one of the iconic Red Dwarf moments. So I think for me, Back to Reality would be my personal one. So question number 3 would be your favourite season. What season would you think is your favourite season of Red Dwarf?
It's a close run thing between 5 and 6. If I was absolutely pressurised, just probably 6. Again, probably because it's got Gunman of the Apocalypse on it.
Yeah, it's got Legion as well,
which is wonderful. Legion was so good.
Yeah, and obviously Sirens as well, which kind of links in with even like Sirens and Polymorph too. So I think I briefly during the Don't Mention the Sea didn't do any research like I've done now, and struggled to work out which episodes had what in. But season 3 and season 6 are probably the best seasons in the show. Especially in the old BBC ones. Because season 3 has likes of Time Slides, Polymorph, Marooned, and Backwards, and they're all like top quality episodes. So again, the fact that we haven't gone through them for so long, both of us, as I say, it's nice to go back into them in this regard. But I would probably say season 3 or 6. I'm going to say season 3. I think that it's got some iconic stuff in there. You've got even Body Swap. Body Swap's in there as well. Body Swap was
fun. Just so much fun.
Yeah, so Maroon, Backwards, Time Slides, Body Swap, Polymorph, and Last Day. So yes, I will go for season 3 with that one. Okay, so now this one's going to be an interesting one. I want to maybe delve a little bit deeper into this one. Is who would you consider to be your favourite character of the show? It could be one of the 4 main stars, 5 main stars, or it could be a guest appearance.
It's the cat. It's the cat. He's just so quotable, and there's some real character development as well, from the shallow but entertaining thing that you saw in the first series all the way up to the end of series 8. He's just wonderful, and it's played with such glee by Danny John Jules that I just loved him. I still do. He's brilliant.
So mine would actually be Crichton. I think Crichton has some great stories. I know we have the the change in actor as well, but I think that is explained, and I think it's season 3. This crawl at the beginning of season 3. But I just love Robert Llewellyn's facial expressions that he manages to get out of that costume, and some of the robot tech, the android tech jokes that come out from that, and some of the stuff he has to go through. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of season 7. I know a lot of people aren't, but the one thing that gets season 7 its high marks are a couple of things. Probably, and we'll touch on this in a second, but probably the Rimmer scene where Rimmer's going away, and they had the song and the theme ride. But then we've got Crichton dealing with various different things in that season, and also again in season 8 with Kachansky. I think he bounces off her really, really well. And, he's just got some great slapstick and, facial movement, jokes and gags and stuff like that. And he has some great quotable lines as well. Nipple nuts to Alaska, it comes to mind. Spin my nipple nuts and send me to Alaska. So that definitely comes to mind for me. So I would say thinking about that today would be Crichton. So then comes to question number 5, and that would be, what would you consider, looking back over the series, would be your favourite moment of the show?
Oh, bloody hell.
Yes, I know. I knew that was going to be the hard one. And we can come back to that, when we get to the end of season 6, if you like, season 1, if you like.
No, I don't think. I think gut reaction is the Ingulman of the Apocalypse when they're all on their horses and that incredible music plays.
Right, okay.
It's in a weird way. In a sci-fi series with 12 series, the iconic moment to me is when they're fucking cowboys, and that makes no sense.
Oh, do you know what mine would be? Which is something that will probably, thinking about this in more of a critical eye, will probably become more apparent as we go through the episodes. Is the one thing I absolutely adore of Red Dwarf is that it's just so it's so campy, but it's also the sets are like sort of really badly designed, or the stuff that happens which is clearly on blue screen and stuff like that. But it's the charm of it. It's the there's a perfect scene. I can't remember which episode it was. We'll get into it, where Rimmer's in Starbug and he's teaching Crichton. He's taking Crichton on a driving lesson, and Rimmer gets shot out of Starbug, and you can totally tell it's a little action man. They actually just get pulled out, and you can also see the string behind them get pulled up. But for me, that's what makes the charm of the show. I think that and the continuity is obviously Red Dwarf has a weird sense of continuity, but I don't think it needs it. But I think that stuff like that, where sets are pretty much falling apart, they haven't got the money, but they kind of live with it and they kind of work the way through it actually. And actually, in some ways, it's a bit of a wink and a nod to like we know it's campy, we know it's not it's not Star Trek or anything like that, but we love it, and we hope that you can totally get off on it. And I think one of the perfect examples is that again, going back to that scene in season 7 with Rimmer and the theme park with the dancing dolls and stuff, which is totally like just wonderful. Absolutely incredible. So those are the 5 questions. So we'll be asking our guests that. So Colin's up on season 1. He's not going to know either, right? But we'll prepare anyone after that. But I've also got one final question for you, which is the final one, which we're going to ask all the guests until they're aware of it. The question would be, would you like some toast?
Always.
So that's basically it, really. So that's the primer. So is there anything else, Mark, that you want to bring up before we sort of say adios and get ready for the season 1 episode, The End?
Yeah, I think I do. I want to shout out to our 3 hosts. We've mentioned Colin already. He's on We Dig Music. I'm looking forward to spending some time with him. And we've got Matt Latham from Pick a Disc. And we've got a newbie to the network. So I want to say welcome to Carl Bryan, who will be joining us. They're our 3 hosts. Well, our 3 guests, I suppose, that will be joining us on a rota kind of basis. And if people do want to watch along, I have had a little bit of a look. Series 1 to 8 is free on Netflix and BritBox as of time of recording. And Series 1 to 8 and all the Dave stuff is available to buy on Amazon. I haven't found a streaming service at the moment that actually will let you...
UK TV.
Never heard of that.
It's an app. It's basically, when UK Gold first came out and Dave was part of UK Gold, I think their umbrella corporation is UK TV. So if you download the app UK TV, you're able to watch. I'm pretty sure that you're able to watch all the seasons on there, because I downloaded, as it happens on The Promised Land, directly after the episode had aired, because it's like a feature-length film, that episode. They had specials, they had some smeg ups, they had some little specials of the making of and stuff like that, and deleted scenes and stuff. So almost like you get from Blu-ray release, like instantly available. So I had to download that app to watch it. But I was pretty sure that I saw the Dave stuff on there. So I think that's probably the best way to get it. And if you've got Sky, I think you can actually just download it from their their kind of download whatever, catch up TV kind of thing.
Well, that's brilliant, because I mean, we're not going to be watching those for quite a while, and maybe we should update people at the start of each series where they can find what we're watching for that whole series. Yeah. But yeah, brilliant. I'll check out UK. Do you call it UK TV? UK
TV, yeah.
I'll check that out.
TV. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. So just a very brief thing, and as I say, we've actually pre-organised the recording for episode 1 directly after our little discussion here. So we're going to skip off here. We're going to try and set ourselves to get to light speed before we get to the episode Future Echoes in a couple of episodes' time. Going to boot up Holly, and until then, see us next week when we look and have a deeper dive into the end. But until then, remember,
she's hot.
Previously on the We Made This Network. The X-Cast, an X-Files podcast.
And just as a side note, right at that moment when they come off of the elevator, they seem to be surrounded by a lot of children. And I don't know, do you know, what is this building that they're in?
Well, it wasn't the federal, or was it the federal building?
I don't think so.
No, but it did have some federal offices. So yeah, I don't know why the children would be there, although it looked like sort of a school trip, was it?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, well, they must be on a field trip.
Yeah.
It's probably the middle of the day,
Right.
What are they doing there? But are they touring the tiny FEMA office that we find out about later? And why would they let the children in with the alien infected bodies in the FEMA office?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I always wonder, what are those kids doing there?
Without a mouse.
You've got some news, haven't you, Tim?
News or lack of news or anti-news, but if you couldn't guess already, the Disney trip that I was supposed to be going on and have been going on about since the very beginning of this fucking podcast did not happen.
Tim, I felt so sorry for you, and particularly when I was listening back to the most recent episodes that you recorded pre-coronavirus, but you aired them during coronavirus. It was just, it was so sad, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
Tim.
yeah.
I mean, obviously I can't give you a hug. 1, because you live a million miles away, and 2, because I can't go there anyway.
Cinemortuary.
I don't know whom Steven Spielberg was trying to kid, but he clearly directed this, not the other guy.
Oh, cool, mate. You've trumped my joke now. I was going to try and clean my glasses lenses and say, can anybody see Dobby Hooper here?
It's quite clearly him that's directing it, and all the worst traits about Steven Spielberg come out here, especially the fucking irritating kids.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast Network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at We Made This Pod.